You know, for the past number of decades, we've all been sold this story that Republicans are supposedly the party of small government, that government should get out of individuals' lives so people can live the way that they want to live, that government shouldn't be meddling with private enterprise, and yada, yada, yada. And then that party, they turned around and they voted for somebody like Donald Trump. And if you take a look at everything that's going on, Donald Trump is by far the worst offender as far as what a big government presence would actually look like. Because he is this wannabe authoritarian, he is trying to stick his grimy little fingers into nearly every aspect of everybody's lives because Donald Trump just wants to control the things that he wants to control. I mean, just take this ongoing feud with Harvard, for instance. I don't know if this was an institution that rejected Donny Boy when he was a young man or what, but ever since he got sworn back in, ever since he's been on this revenge tour going after all of his perceived enemies, Harvard has been at the top of his list. And I want to just go over a few of the highlights from this ongoing feud. And then I want to talk about how the Trump administration is now escalating their attacks on this institution. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Now, the administration cut $450 million in federal grants, froze more than $2 billion in research funding, moved to ban international students, what we're talking about today, threatened to end the university's tax-exempt status, and is using the Department of Justice to investigate diversity initiatives.
Does this not sound like government overreach to anybody else? You've got a Trump administration using the DOJ to go after a private institution because they have diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives? Is that not government overreach? Donald Trump goes in, he cuts $450 million of grant money, and then tries to freeze an additional $2 billion that mostly goes towards medical research. I mean, this is just absolutely insane. Most people might look at that $2 billion and think it's like some sort of gift that Harvard just gets to get. But that is not how we should be viewing this, guys. There are things that the government wants to study because of public interest, and we partner with private institutions to study those things. So when you rip that funding away, you are not going to be studying the rare diseases that we have a public interest in solving. And Harvard is only one of those institutions that accepts that type of money to do this type of research. It's more of like, kind of like a contracting or an employment type of contract. But a lot of people just look at this and say, oh, well, Harvard, they got a $52 billion endowment. It's no big deal. They can survive the hit. I don't think that's how we should be viewing it. We have a whole bunch of public-private partnerships. That's how our country has worked for decades, if not centuries now, because we do not want the government, doing all of the research itself, right? We partner with private institutions who are good at doing these types of things to make these things more efficient. And now you've got a Trump administration who is trying to come in here and strip that funding away, all because they won't snap into line and become MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. I mean, that is really kind of the vibe that we are getting. And now the Trump administration has now gone after Harvard yet again and said that they will no longer be allowed to accept foreign students, which would be a huge blow to Harvard because I think between 27 and 31% of students at Harvard are from out of the country. So let's go ahead and take a look at how Kristi Noem is trying to run cover for this decision. Here she is talking about how, well, Harvard just brought this upon themselves.
Madam Secretary, you say it is a privilege, not a right, for American schools to be able to host foreigners on their campus.
Yes, that's exactly right. And this program has been in place for a very long time. These policies have been in place for a long time, and Harvard brought these consequences upon themselves. They have promoted and allowed violent activity on campus. They have allowed anti-Semitism, participation with CCP and Chinese infiltration and influence on their campus, and they haven't protected their students. So we have given them multiple opportunities to share criminal activity with us, backgrounds on these students, to let us conduct the oversight into this program that is our responsibility, and they have refused to do so. So today I sent them a letter that said they will no longer be allowed to participate in this student exchange visitor program, and that's up to 27% of their enrolled students. So it's significant. Any foreign student that wishes to get an education in this country that is attending Harvard and not participating in this criminal activity, they will have to find another university to go to because Harvard has chosen instead to not protect their students and to allow this kind of violent and discriminatory action continue.
Again, guys, does this not feel like government overreach to anybody else? If you want to say there's a problem with anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus, go for it. But does that mean the government should come in and revoke their opportunity to accept foreign students? I mean, it is absolutely insane. Just to put it into perspective to everybody, we export more educational services than we do natural gas and coal combined because our elite institutions like Harvard attract talent from all around the world. And what does that give us the opportunity to do? It gives us the opportunity to teach them more American values. And now, what? You've got a government coming in, and because they're not snapping in line, because they're not doing exactly what Donald Trump wants them to do, they're going to strip away this status. They're going to try to rip away their funding, take away their grant money, all because Donald Trump just wants to control this place the way that he wants to control it. And we're going to go ahead and dig into some of the demands that they sent over to Harvard a little bit later. But I also think it's really funny because Kristi Noem was also asked about the Qataris and whether or not they are part of the problem as far as this anti-Semitism problem goes. As most of you may know, Qataris have been dumping a whole bunch of funding into many universities around our country, and they might have funded some of these anti-Semitic movements that we've seen across our country as well. But listen to the way she answers this question.
But do you believe, Madam Secretary, that the Qataris in particular are behind a lot of the anti-Semitism you just described? Are they providing fuel that creates this fire?
You know, I'm not an expert in this area. I think that there's validity to what he has said, but I also think that we've got a lot of influences here, and we've got a lot of people that have facilitated this that have a different agenda. Some of these universities have even barred law enforcement officers from coming on campus and haven't even allowed there to be basic law and order on the areas that they're responsible for. So we're going to continue to do our investigations and make sure that what the Department of Homeland Security is responsible for, it will be done with integrity for the way that Congress laid out that programs should work and the opportunities that we have to allow people to come into this country, learn, and to be a part of a country that promotes freedom and liberty and that everybody is equal.
Isn't that just so pernicious? She's saying, oh, well, we need to make sure that these universities, they're teaching freedom and liberty and make sure everybody's equal in a democracy. And you've got the President of the United States going after Harvard because he perceives them as their enemy. Are those the types of values that we really want to export to the rest of the world? Seems pretty antithetical to the idea of the United States. And did you notice what she said there as far as the Qataris funding some of these anti-Semitic movements? Oh, well, I'm not an expert in that. Oh, why don't you have any strong statements on that? Might it be that your boss just accepted a $400 million plane from the Qatari royals? And now we're going to have taxpayers put up another, $1 billion so we can retrofit that plane so Donald Trump can use it for a couple years and then take it with him when he leaves the Oval Office? Is maybe that why you don't want to give a stronger answer on this? Look, we had some problems with anti-Semitism on many campuses across this country. Yes, that is a problem that we should address. Do I think it was the majority of protests that were occurring as far as the Palestinian cause goes? I don't think so. I could be swayed otherwise, but I think that those were the extremes. I think that those were the exception, not the rule. And if we want to address those in some, reasonable ways, let's go ahead and do that. But we should not have a president of the United States threatening to take away funding, threatening to take away foreign students, it just does not set right. It's un-American at its core. The president of the United States should not have this type of power to go in and start calling the shots at a private university. We can work on this public-private relationship like we have been doing for years, but what they are doing here is government overreach. And here's Kristi Noem, basically threatening to go after other universities if they don't snap in line as well.
Could you foresee, or are you now considering similar moves with other universities like Columbia that has allowed Jewish students to be threatened and made unsafe?
Absolutely. We are absolutely. This should be a warning to every other university to get your act together. Get your act together, because we are coming to make sure that these programs, that you are facilitating an environment where students can learn, where they're safe, and that they're not discriminated against based on their race or their religion. Anti-Semitism will not be stood for, and any participation with a country or an entity or a terrorist group that hates America and perpetuates this kind of violence, we will stop it, and we will not allow that to happen, especially in places where our kids need to grow up and really learn what this country is about, what the world is about, and what it means to promote freedom and liberty.
How are we promoting freedom and liberty when you've got the federal government going after a private institution because they aren't doing things the way that you would like them to be done? Is that freedom and liberty, or is that government overreach? And she's going on and threatening other universities. Well, if you guys don't step into line, if you don't do exactly what we say, then we're coming after you too. This is government overreach, folks. This is not what we should be doing here in the United States. We should pride ourselves on the public-private relationship. We should pride ourselves in making sure that there are boundaries between the federal government and the private university. If you want to say that there is issues with some of these protests, were there anti-Semitic elements in those protests? Sure. But to go around parading like you're some free speech warrior, like you're going after anti-Semitism, these are two contradictory things, right? Basically, what they're telling these universities is you guys must do things the way that we say that they need to be done. But they forget that anti-Semitism, as grotesque as it is, that is protected by free speech. If I want to come out there and say that I don't like the Jews, I hate the Jews, and yada, 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 that is my right as an American citizen. That's not something that I feel, of course, just to caveat that. But this is the type of speech that is protected by our First Amendment. So when you've got a president of the United States trying to wield anti-Semitism as some sort of weapon against these universities while also parading around pretending that you're the free speech guy, it just doesn't make any sense. And I want to go ahead and dig into some of these demands that the Trump administration was giving to Harvard. This is what they were asking Harvard to provide, lest they get their status stripped away or lest they get more funding stripped away. These are the things that the Trump administration was looking for.
Ellison, but this began with the administration sending this demand letter, wanting to know everything from kind of being able to see the views and opinions of activists and professors on campus to being able to have potential influence over things like certain academic programs and hiring and firing decisions on campus. But the latest list of demands that they received from Secretary Kristi Noem this week was a request for all kinds of disciplinary data about students, private information that universities, by the way, don't typically have to hand over, which is why you're seeing this university not already engage with them on the lawsuit that we've already seen over the billions of dollars of aid that they've lost, but now fight again on another legal front to try to preserve really the spirit of the school and the services they provide to people from all over the world, Ellison.
I mean, just think about how insane this actually is, guys. You've got the Trump administration who is asking Harvard to compile a list of students with all of their disciplinary action, with all of this other private information attached, and then they want Harvard to hand over this list of names to an administration who is currently rounding up people without any due process, shipping people off to gulags down in El Salvador. They're rounding up students, taking away their visas, kicking them out of the country if they're not ideologically aligned. I mean, of course, Harvard is going to have reservations about this. Why would they want to make it easier for this administration to target their very own students? Especially if we're talking about information that is not normally shared with the federal government. I mean, this is just government overreach at its finest. And the demands didn't even stop there, right? They want to be able to go into the institution. They want to be able to look at the ideological makeup of the faculty, of the students, of the activists. They want to have influence over the hiring and the firing. They want to be able to go in there and shut down diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Oh, and if you guys don't, it's no big deal. You just won't be allowed to accept foreign students at your university anymore. It is all just insane. Now, luckily, a federal judge looked at this and blocked it immediately, just like all of these other lawless actions this administration is currently engaged in. But I just want everybody to take a step back and look at what the whole picture of what is going on here. You've got an overzealous president who's got a bone to pick with a private institution. He cut off $450 million of funding. He froze another $2 billion in medical research funding that helps go after diseases that we have a public interest in solving. He then threatened to take away their tax-exempt status. And now the latest attack is making sure that foreign students are not allowed to attend their university if the university doesn't do exactly what this administration says. Is this really how we want our federal government to work? Or should there be a good buffer between the federal government and a private institution? If you want to say that there are different problems to address, like I said before, let's go ahead and have conversations about this. If you think there's a problem with anti-Semitism, we can address that. If you think there is a problem with this so-called liberal bias on university campuses, we can go ahead and address that. But not like this. This is a government overstepping its bounds like no other government that we have ever seen before. And because Donald Trump is this wannabe authoritarian who wants to be the king of the United States of America, he is going in there and wreaking havoc on some of our greatest institutions. Also, he can feel like a big, bad, tough guy. Also, he can try to control the ins and outs of all of these different institutions. It is un-American, it is unacceptable, and I think we all need to stand up and fight back against this authoritarian regime. So, I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just launders all of this fascist nonsense for Donald Trump every single day. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. It is free. And if you guys want to see Donald Trump having one of the greatest meltdowns that we've probably ever seen since he got sworn back in as the 47th president, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. You definitely don't want to miss it. It is just insane. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.